Have you ever looked at a super technical field like Web3 and just thought, there is no way I'm smart enough for that? Well, today we're diving into the incredible story of a developer who started in that exact spot and ended up at the very top of his game.
This right here, this was the starting line for the developer who goes by contract level. And I think it's a feeling a lot of us can relate to, right? That feeling of intimidation when you're looking up at a massive wall of stuff you don't know. But stick with me, because how he climbed that wall is pretty amazing.
I mean, just look at this transformation. It's kind of wild. He went from literally Googling, what is HTML, the most basic building block of the internet, to now running his own company that builds incredibly secure audit-ready code. So how on earth do you bridge a gap that huge? Well, that's exactly what we're going to break down.
So you might think his journey started with a love for code, but it actually didn't. It started with a really big idea. Long before he could write a single line, Contract Level was just fascinated by the long-term, world-changing potential of smart contracts.
And for him, these weren't just buzzwords. He saw smart contracts as something profound, a way to encode ideas, kind of like the great philosophers of the past, but into programs that are totally reliable and could literally last for centuries. It was this big, philosophical vision that really lit the fire for him.
But here's the funny part. The road to that grand future started with the smallest possible step. Someone told him to check out a Solidity tutorial. But that tutorial said, hey, you should probably know JavaScript first. And the JavaScript tutorial? It started with HTML. So his whole adventure into the future of decentralized tech began with him typing "what is HTML" into a search bar. And as he started learning, he had this huge aha moment. He looked around and saw that most projects were just, copying and pasting code from standard libraries, which is fine, it works. But he realized the real value, the real skill, was in deeply understanding security and knowing how to build these systems the right way from the very beginning. And that idea changed everything for him. Okay, so now he had his mission, security. He knew that just wandering from one random tutorial to another wasn't going to cut it anymore. He needed a real structured path. And that's when he found Cyfrin Updraft, which was basically the step-by-step roadmap he'd been searching for.
And just look at this path. It makes so much sense, right? It builds everything layer by layer. You're not jumping into the deep end. You start with the absolute basics of blockchain, then you learn the language, then the tools like Foundry, and only then do you get into the really advanced stuff like security and formal verification. This curriculum was the key that unlocked the whole thing for him. But here's the most important part. The platform didn't just dump a bunch of technical facts on him. The real magic was that it taught him a security-first mindset. It was all about learning how to think systematically, how to approach problems with security as the #1 priority, not something you tack on at the end. So, with this new mindset, he started building his toolkit. But his whole philosophy wasn't about learning every shiny new tool out there. Nope, it was about mastering the few that were absolutely essential. And here they are. You've got Solidity, obviously. You've got Foundry for testing, which is a beast. And then the secret weapon, Satora Prover for formal verification. That's where you use actual math to prove your code is safe. But honestly, the most important tools weren't software. They were these principles. Invariant thinking, which is just a fancy way of saying what rules should my code never break. And this idea to go deep, not wide. He decided it was better to be a true expert in a few things than just okay at a bunch of them. All right, so you've got the knowledge, you've got the tools, but can you actually use them when the pressure's on? The real test came when he decided to build his own project, called YieldCoin, for a huge hackathon. So he builds this thing, and by every normal metric, it was perfect. He wrote unit tests for everything, and they all pass with flying colors, 100% coverage. On paper, the code was flawless. But we're in the world of smart contracts, right? A world where one tiny bug can mean millions of dollars gone forever. So the real question is passing all the tests actually good enough? Was this thing really, truly safe? And the answer, it turns out, was a big fat no. Because he used those deeper testing strategies he learned, things like invariant testing, he found a hidden critical bug. A bug that his perfect unit tests completely missed. A bug that would have literally lost users their money. So what was this sneaky bug? Well, it was subtle, but really bad. When you deposit money, the code would figure out how many new tokens to give you, but it was using the new total value of the system, the value after your deposit was already in, to do the math. Because of that tiny timing mistake, it would always give the user slightly fewer tokens than they deserved. It was basically skimming a little bit off the top of every single deposit without anyone noticing.
And he says it himself. Finding that bug would have been impossible without that security-first mindset. It's the perfect showcase of why that deeper level of testing isn't just a nice-to-have. It's absolutely essential in this space.
So what happened after all that hard work, after finding and fixing that critical bug? He didn't just submit a secure project, he won the whole thing, the grand prize. It was the ultimate validation that his focus on security wasn't just right, it was world-class.
But that hackathon win wasn't the finish line. Nope, it was the starting pistol for his new career as a founder, where he gets to put everything he learned into practice for his clients.
And the philosophy of his company, Contract-Level, is so simple but so powerful. It's right here. Simple contracts, deeply tested. That's it. Keep the code as simple as you can to reduce the places where things can go wrong, and then test the absolute heck out of it.
So, what's his advice for anyone who wants to follow in his footsteps? It's refreshingly straightforward. 1. Be consistent. You got to put in the reps every day. 2. Go deep. Don't try to learn everything. Find 1 or 2 things that really excite you and become a master at them. And 3. Share what you're doing. Put your work out there. Everybody in the community gets better when we all participate.
And we're going to end on this, because it's a message straight to anyone feeling that self-doubt we talked about at the very beginning. If you think you're not smart enough or technical enough to do this, his message is that you are just wrong. It's not about being some kind of genius. It's about being consistent, finding the right resources to guide you, and just having the will to keep going. So, what will you start learning today?